Good morning. Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritam Gamaya Avirmaedhi Rudrayate Dakshinangamukam Te Namam Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Let us sit quietly a few moments and meditate on the Supreme Spirit in any way we please. Badram karnebhi shrunuyama devaha Badram pasyem akshabhiryajatraha Sthirayangaestushtuvahi Yuhu Om Shanti Shanti. With our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. The reality of God. It seems like a very theoretical topic because generally we're considering, or we consider in our lives, everything except that. God is considered to be something that those people who specialize in that subject, monks and nuns, priests and preachers, they have to be concerned more with that. But generally we're concerned with practical details, everything. The world is so much with us, so much, so demanding that we hardly get any time to consider that question. What is this entity? What is this concept? What is this reality called God? And if you think about it in general, in the popular religions also, God is assumed. It's an assumption. God exists, and He is to be worshipped. He is to be honored in various ways. He is to be obeyed. There are certain laws and covenants and commandments. And then there's a traditional history. The Jewish people wandering in the desert after their release from slavery in the ancient days under the pharaohs in Egypt, wandering through the desert, and then Moses, they come to Mount Sinai. Moses goes up the mountain and God appears to him, and a set of commandments is given, a covenant is arranged so that this people will obey the commands of God. Moses comes down the mountain and shows the tablets of the law and so forth. All of these other developments follow in due course. So this is generally how it is, how spiritual or how religion is presented. Or there's that being the basis, there's also the history of Jesus and his formulation of the spiritual covenant, the spiritual laws. And then later on, this covenant was again interpreted by great theologians as there are certain spiritual implications. Jesus sacrificed himself, and for the sake of the redemption of human beings. And all these ideas are there. So by simply worshipping the way we're told, or considering ourselves to be resigning ourselves or surrendering ourselves to that infinite reality in some form. That's the way we approach, or frequently many people approach that question about the ultimate nature of things, the ultimate reality. And then there are many different variations of that, but somehow there's a supernatural element that enters, and we don't really understand, but it's something that we will only slowly realize as we develop. But the question of the reality of God is assumed. God is assumed to be real, and what the very nature of God is assumed to be beyond human comprehension. And in fact, it's probably something we are not meant to inquire into too much. Anyway, these are all different expositions that are expressed in different ways in different spiritual traditions. But the question always in the back of everyone's mind, whether they express it or not, even though they may fully accept whatever tradition they have adopted or that they have been born in, the question always remains in the back of the mind is, what is this reality called God? What is this? How is it that it seems to be such a pervasive phenomenon, so that people, atheists who supposedly characterize themselves as not believing in God, atheists are in general thought to be unusual, that it should be a normal part of everyone's thought process and emotion that God, or that entity which is described as God, is a reality and is responsible for our happiness, certainly hereafter, if not here also. But what that reality is, what the real nature of things is not generally inquired into too much, because there's no way in an ordinary life there doesn't seem to be any handle to approach that question. It is something that is beyond, admittedly beyond ratiocination, beyond thought processes, and therefore it's quite, most of the time we're quite happy to leave it in one corner. Yes, this is a sacred idea, like an icon that's left there, and we accept it. Yes, this is the reality, and we simply go about our business, our ordinary business in life, and the spiritual business is what the various religious organizations have prescribed. Certain prayers, certain invocations, meditations, certain worships. These are all the things we figure that this is the way we are abiding by the precepts of our particular religion, and whatever goal is prescribed in that religion, we will achieve if we faithfully follow these precepts and instructions. And then, of course, we live our life in the ordinary way, and in the course of time we find ourselves, first we see others slowly vanishing off into the beyond, and we know that eventually we ourselves are going to be following the same route. But the reality of life is usually so severe and so demanding that really we cannot undertake any fundamental research into this or make a fundamental course correction. The practical aspect of things is too demanding, too all-consuming. Life, just to live life, is too all-consuming an endeavor for us to go too deeply into something which seems theoretical. Nobody knows anything about it. There are theories, there are ideas presented in the scriptures, but if you ask priests, like I once asked a rabbi, he was mentioning something about God, and I asked him what was his conception of God, what was this reality called God? But he couldn't answer, he couldn't say, he merely repeated some of the regular things that preachers will tell the congregation. This was very bothersome to me, that he couldn't really explain what it was that he was asking people to worship. Every week he was calling people to worship, and you have to say prayers, and you're saying prayers to God, and you're filled with emotion because of it, because of something. It may be because of tradition. Maybe you're born into that tradition, and just the repeating these prayers and hymns and all these exercises, that somehow is very moving to us, and we seem to be satisfied with that. And that may be all right, that may be quite fine, maybe this is all that we need. But for people for whom this is not all they need, the question still remains, what is this? What is this mysterious reality called God? And people will fight and earnestly kill each other for the sake of, because some people are not obeying what has been prescribed, therefore they should be punished in some way or other. And maybe that's all right if that entity really requires that. I mean, if you break the law in any sense and someone gets punished because that person has broken the law, we don't feel that that's inappropriate. That person knew what they were going into. That person knew what they were supposed to do. They didn't do it. The law was there for a certain purpose, to protect certain beings and certain interests, and it was deliberately violated, and there had been a punishment had been proposed for that, and so if people are punished for this, we think that that's not inappropriate. We may question the severity or the amount or all that, but the principle is not really questioned. But it all hinges on this fact. What is this entity called God, and what is what laws or what can be expected if that reality exists? What can one expect as the requirement for realizing the truth of that? And what can we expect for a punishment or a risk for not following that procedure? Then in order to approach this, because you want to know what God is, but you have no way of knowing where to look, you have no idea what questions to ask. But what is it that you can? What fundamental truth, what fundamental reality is it that we can ask about? we can ask about ourselves. We can examine ourselves. We don't know how to look for God, but we know ourselves in a sense. We know there's a physical reality here, there's an intellectual reality here. That's all we really know, but we can inquire into the nature of that. And when we inquire into that, we find out quite naturally that we are an entity at present. We're a living being. We are equipped with bodies and minds and memories. But there are two profound things that we do not know about ourselves, that we cannot know about ourselves fully. Or there are certain ideas that maybe one can remember one's previous births by doing certain exercises or by certain processes. Maybe we can remember what happened before this birth. But certainly we do not know what happens after this life. And different spiritual philosophies maintain different things. They maintain that there is a certain universal code, that if we do not abide by this code, punishment will come. If it doesn't come in this life, it will come hereafter. All these things are there. But nevertheless, we are faced with an enigma of the future and an enigma of the past. All we're aware of is there's a reality at present that we experience. There's a memory that we have of a certain past. There is we can foretell the likelihood that the future may take. So, what is it that we are surrounded? If we cannot inquire directly into the reality of God, we don't know how to do that. We can inquire into the reality of ourselves. That is more accessible. And when we inquire into that, what are we really? We find we are certainly a physical entity, we're bodies. And this, as bodies, we have minds. We're endowed with a mind. We can think about the past, the present, the future. But where we come from and where we go, what the past is and what the future is again shrouded in mystery. But we suspect that maybe the mystery of our past and our future is also tied to the mystery of what is this entity called God. So, because there are two unknowns concerning about the same area of thought, so the suspicion is that there may be a relationship between those two. And if we can find out the reality of ourselves, maybe we can also answer that question, what is that which is called God? So the next question would be, has anyone found out anything about ourselves, about this reality which I call me? And for that, as far as our tradition goes, we go to the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the original sources from which Vedanta draws its philosophy. And what is it about the Upanishads that, in other words, if the Upanishadic sages came to certain conclusions, the understanding is that we can come to the same conclusions if we follow what they have, the methods, the procedures that they have followed. Now, they don't make any absolute, they do make absolute statements that supreme reality, which they call Atman or Brahman, in terms of God, it's called Brahman. In terms when it reflects in ourselves, in the human personality, it's called Atman. But there is that reality they have made certain claims about that. And one of the strangest claims is that there is no difference anywhere, that the same reality that we are asking, that we call God, or the Spirit, the transcendental, that same reality is existing everywhere. And they make the further claim that there is no other reality existing anywhere. So from being totally perplexed, we still remain totally perplexed. How is this possible? So let me read some of the things that are said, some of the things that are that reality called, which is either the reality behind the universe or the reality behind our personality, which is the same reality. How is that described, and what is it that is said about it? And then slowly we can compare that to what science also says. Because one of the basic ideas that seems to emerge is that the quest for knowledge in any field is the quest for knowledge in all fields. That if one acquires a distinct knowledge of this physical universe or the psychological universe, that when one perceives the reality that is what is generally called God, or the infinite, or the reality behind the universe, the truths of those things that are true in one aspect should still be true. So if something is true under certain conditions and then becomes falsified when the conditions change, then that thing is really not true. It's only something for the time being, and it's not any better than our ordinary thought processes. So this is another assumption, another, you could say, conclusion, that what is true, what is real in any sphere should be real in all spheres. That if one has actually perceive something which is true, it should not be falsified by something else, somewhere else. So the fundamental reality, when we're looking for the fundamental reality of God, that should also be the fundamental reality behind ourselves, and it should be the fundamental reality behind the universe. It should be the rock upon which we can lay anchor and be certain that we've caught hold of something that will not crumble. Otherwise, whatever else we talk about, it is true now, but it may change later, or it is true while we're alive and it is not true once we have passed away. So that is not called a fundamental truth. So this is some of the things that are said, some of the statements that are made, I want to read out. And just to give a framework for what we are talking about when we inquire about the reality of God. And one of the most profound things, statements, is made in the Kathopanishad. Yadeveha tadamutra. What yad eva iha, iha is here, tad, that amutra is also there. What is here is also there. And what is there is also here. Yadeveha tadamutra, yadamutra tad anu iha, tadanu iha. That is again iha, here. What is here is there, what is there is here. What is true here at this instant of time, at this point in space, is also true there, at any other point in time and space. Mrityuho sa mrityum apnoti. From death, mrityuho, from death, sa he, mrityum, death, apnoti, he reaches death. So from death to death, ya iha naneva pashyati. Who goes from death to death? That is to say, he is born, he dies, he's born again, he dies again. Who goes from death to death? Ya, who, iha, here, nana iva, multiplicity as it were, pashyati, sees. So, whatever is here, that is also there. Whatever is there, that same is also here. He who sees that here and there are different, he meets death again and again. So, but that is very difficult to figure out. I mean, obviously what is here is not what is there. What is here is this being, what is there are you all. And how can you say that we're all the same? We're all different. Also, it doesn't say anything about live beings or non-live beings. What is here in this, whatever you call this, is also there, whatever you call that. So then, if this is true, you have to ask yourself the question, what is it that is both here and there? And the statement is such that it includes everything. It doesn't say all living beings here are the same as living beings everywhere. No, it doesn't say that. It simply says whatever is here, that is the essence of what is here, is also the essence of what is there, meaning everywhere. In other words, whatever is anywhere, the reality of whatever is anywhere, is the reality of everything everywhere. Those are, very challenging ideas. What is it that satisfies that requirement? That is the question we should ask. What is it that could possibly satisfy the requirement that whatever is in one place is also in every other place? Then you say, well, all right, that's quite simple. This body is made up of atoms, and all those bodies are made up of atoms. The wall is made up of atoms, and atoms and molecules and all of that. So maybe what they're talking about is atoms and molecules. So that would be a very trivial question, a very trivial answer from a psychological standpoint. And you think, okay, now scientifically we want to lay this matter to rest. But then I ask you the question, you say, well, what is in all these atoms and molecules is also in those atoms and molecules. What is it? Well, they're protons, electrons, neutrons. All right, but that's not the same. There are already three different things: protons, electrons, neutrons. What is the essence of those things? Oh, well, that's nothing. We now talk about quarks and electric fields and strong fields and weak fields and this and that. But you're still talking about many different things. What is that reality which pervades all of those things? So whichever way you look at it, it's got to be something which is the reality of the reality of the reality. We're looking for the essence. Then the question is, okay, suppose you find something which is the essence of the essence, which is here and there, which is in all, which is the essence of all molecules and all of that. People are looking for that. Suppose you find that, how is that psychologically? That is physically, okay, I can see atoms and molecules, yeah, we could manage somehow. Science could get to a point where, yes, we can find something, maybe a vibrating string or whatever. They now talk about vibrating strings, although there's no possibility of ever verifying that because the dimensions, the size is so minute, if it actually exists, that it can never really be observed. Somehow we're still in the physical plane. We haven't touched the psychological yet. When I say what is here that is also there, that must be not only because physically we're the same, we're one, but we must also psychologically be one. And we must be spiritually one. Otherwise we haven't gotten to oneness. And the idea of getting to oneness is very crucial. Because if there is one reality, there's no possibility that that could change. There is no second. Ekam eva dvitiyam brahma, neha nanasti kinchana. This is from Vivekachudamani. Ekam eva advitiyam, one and ever without a second. This is Brahman. This is that reality we're looking for. Neha nanasti kinchana. There's no multiplicity here. Everything indeed is Brahman. Everything indeed is that spiritual reality. So, again, so we're looking for God. We're looking for the one thing that permeates everything. We're looking for the one reality that is the reality of everything. So then, the question is, how is it that you find that? In the Bhagavad Gita, there is this, there's also similar statements are made. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram pashyati. He who sees Parameshwara, the Supreme Lord, we're now looking for a spiritual reality, something that is beyond or that interpenetrates or is the essence of the physical and the psychological. That Parameshwara, we give it that name, the Supreme Lord, Paramaishwara. He who sees, he says, Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam. He who sees standing or abiding, samam, in the same way, sarveshu bhuteshu, in sarva bhuta, in all beings. He who sees the Supreme Lord abiding samam, equally in all beings, vinashyatsu, that the perishable, avinashyantam, the imperishable in the perishable, he sees. So he who sees the imperishable within everything that is perishable, in other words, he sees the Lord defined as that which is imperishable. He who sees the imperishable in everything that is perishable, he sees, he really sees. So this is a challenge that is thrown to us. In all beings, we're supposed to see, or the statement is made that there is an imperishable entity. In all beings, in all things, in all essences, in all realities. That is to say, in living beings, in non-living beings, in physical, psychological realities, and everywhere. There's no exception that is stated there. he who sees within the perishable the imperishable, he truly sees. Now, how is it? How do you do that? How do you think about that? So the basic statement when we're talking about the reality of God, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for something, God being defined as something that is present everywhere, that is both the past, the present, and the future, that controls all living beings, in other words, directs their activities or supervises their activities. Different religions have different definitions of it. Anyway, it's not the one thing that, when we talk about the reality of God, what we're looking for is something which is beyond the physical and beyond the psychological. Something that interpenetrates both the physical and the psychological, or something that is the essence of everything, something of which whatever is physical and all psychology are only specializations. So it is a reality which, when seen in a certain sense, is seen as the body, as structures, as physical things, and seen in another way, it's the mind and the psychology and the mental universe, but in itself, it is the all-pervading spirit without any boundaries anywhere. So this is, if one wants to talk about the reality of God, this is not an easy project for us, you know. It's not something that a college, university professor will give to his students as this is an exercise meant for the student. It's not like that. It's something that takes one's whole life to achieve. There's another verse in the Bhagavad Gita which is very similar to that. It's the next verse, chapter 13. Samam pasyan hi sarvatra samavastitam Ishwaram. Again, Ishvara is the name of that spiritual reality that beyond body, beyond physical and mental. So the idea is one is supposed to see samavastitam, sama in the same way, avastitam, established, fully established in the same way, sarvatra, everywhere, samam, seeing that reality everywhere, established in the same way. And so forth, that person goes to the supreme goal. Tato yati param gatim. Because of that, he goes to that, he reaches the supreme goal. So this is the instruction that is left by those who have experienced that reality, who claim that they've experienced that reality and they have found this thing which is beyond the physical and beyond the mental. It's supposed to be seen as the one thing that is seen everywhere. So how is one to do that? Or how is one to... these are the statements that are made by people who have made this claim that they have reached this. Now it's for us to verify that claim. If we're interested in reaching that, if we're interested in getting to that which is beyond death, and the Kathopanishad says death, for such a being, death is nothing but is a trivial thing. Whether one lives or dies, death is a trivial thing when one has perceived that which interpenetrates everything, which is the essence of everything, which is at the heart of everything. So what is it that has to be done to achieve that? How is one to test that or to perceive that reality of God? There are other quotations, there are other places where sages in other Upanishads have made inquiries into this subject, have written about these inquiries. For instance, there's this from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, between the king, Janaka, and the sage, Yajnavalkya. The question is, what serves the king? Of course, you don't know at the beginning exactly what he's intending, but you can see slowly where the intention is. First he says, what serves as light for a person? And the sage Yajnavalkya answers, why, the sun serves as light. That's wonderful, okay, but when the sun has set, what serves as light? Why, the moon, okay. Now when both the sun and the moon have set, what serves as light for a person? Now you begin to see where he's drifting. Fire will serve as his light. Okay, that's fine. Suppose the sun has set, the moon has set, and fire has been put out. What serves as light? Well, sound serves as light. By sound you can tell where things are and head in that direction and so forth. Okay. Now suppose the sun has set, the moon has set, the fire has gone out, and there's no sound anywhere. What serves as light? So it goes on and on. Finally, the final level is the self serves as light. So then the question is, what is that self? And then Yajnavalkya explains the nature of the self. That reality which is the essence of everything, that which perceives everything, that meets this requirement of these other verses that I quoted. That's also phrased in a different way. Another discussion in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. What is it? What is the essence? This is even more, it's along the present scientific lines. What is the essence of various things, the sage is asked? And he answers the question like we could put it in the modern way that, yes, what is this? The essence of this is atoms and molecules and all that. What's the essence of the atoms and molecules and so forth? It goes on, down, down. Finally, the question is, well, what is the essence of that which is the essence of everything? Well, space, because everything occupies space. So space is the fundamental reality in this universe. Everything is within space, either psychological space or physical space. All right, wonderful. But then, this is Gargi, great lady sage. She asks the next question, which completely reaches to the very bottom of all possibilities, the very foundation of everything. Okay, space is the basis of everything that is experienced. What is the reality of space? What is the basis of space? Then Yajnavalkya talks about the Supreme Brahman, the reality, the infinite consciousness. So, when one talks about the reality of God and what is the essence, what is the substance, what is the most fundamental reality we can conceive of, then we finally come to consciousness. It is the fact that you're conscious. It is consciousness that is the final primary element. Without consciousness, none of this would be there. So consciousness is fundamental. But is that all? That sounds like a very bloodless reality. You know, what is the, how attractive or how effective is it simply to say consciousness? It looks like a very theoretical answer. It doesn't. We're supposed to be talking about the reality of God. It doesn't seem to put much reality there. But that consciousness is also called ananda, is also called bliss. And it is also called chit, it is also called existence. Sat, existence, chit, consciousness, ananda, bliss. So, the final conclusion that these sages describe is that what is the most fundamental reality? What is the essence of ourselves? It is, first of all, it is consciousness. And then it becomes, it is existence. First of all, the most fundamental quality is existence. We all exist. But not only do we exist, we are conscious. Now, mostly we think that we have to be conscious of something. Consciousness by itself doesn't seem to be such a very attractive or meaningful thing. What is consciousness by itself? I want to be conscious of this, that, and the other. Then I feel some satisfaction. Okay, the answer is there's also a third thing, namely ananda. The essence of ourselves is not only that we are conscious, that consciousness and existence are fundamental realities, but consciousness and existence are also ananda, also bliss, also in other words, the fulfillment of all our desires. Right now our desires are for this or that, or the solution of this or that problem. And when the problem gets solved, we feel happy. But another problem comes along, and again we're unhappy. We want the solution of that. And there's no end to that. So if our ananda, our bliss, comes from the solution of problems, we always have to have problems. And they're not all going to be happily solved. They cannot be. The probability is impossible that all problems should have a solution filled with bliss. Some will be filled with the reverse of that. So what is this ananda that is being talked about? This ananda is a persistent state of reality. This is the essence of our own being. And what we're established in ananda, we're established in bliss. And it's only because we become interested in things and in ideas as being essential that we depart from that ananda, which is our own initial nature. And how do we know it's our initial nature? Very simple, very easy. The most blissful state in everyone's life is deep sleep. But generally we say, okay, well, I'm asleep, boy, I didn't know what was happening. All these interesting things were happening. I was sound asleep. I didn't know I shouldn't have been asleep. I shouldn't sleep so much. I should be more active. All these things we say. And from a practical standpoint, that's all right. But from this theoretical standpoint, what is the foundation of everything? What is this reality called God? It's because we depart from that state. It's because of the restlessness of our minds and interests that we depart from that state. But also we're still, and because we tend to depart from that state and tend to be interested in those things, that ananda is not full. That ananda we can get but we get it once a day. We get it during a state of deep sleep. That we come as close to it as at any other time, or the closest approach is in the state of deep sleep. Every day we have to have that deep sleep. And if we don't sleep deeply, one night we feel utterly miserable. If we don't get sound sleep for 3, 4, 5 nights, we're totally out of joint. Everything is a problem. We do everything we can in order to knock ourselves out for that period of deep sleep. But what is it that we experience in deep sleep? Do we experience any particular fulfillment of any particular desire, or do we go to a place which is all, which we, some super interesting place? No, nothing at all happens there. In other words, all phenomena are quieted at that point. And yet it's a state which is profoundly needed by us every day. It's a state of ignorance, no doubt, because we don't know the reality there. But everything else has been quieted, and we long for that. So when external phenomena cease, when our persistent yearning after this or that is quieted for a moment, we reach a state which is very natural to us. We reach a fundamental state which has nothing to do with those things which are superimposed on our existence. And that fundamental state, which we call deep sleep, is what? It's the most blissful state of our day. Something we absolutely yearn for. But what is it that it's filled with? Is it filled with objects? No. Is it filled with thoughts? No. And because objects and thoughts and all these things have been placed on top of our consciousness, over our consciousness, because they're gone, we should feel nothing. And we do feel nothing. But we feel an intense joy when we wake up. I slept well. You slept well, but what was the reason that you feel so good about it? Not because you enjoyed this or that, not because you thought this or that, but because you came a little closer to your own individual nature. Our own inner nature is bliss. Our own inner nature is that infinite consciousness, infinite satisfaction, infinite fulfillment is our nature. And we depart from that. All these other things that we want are departures from that. And therefore they are full of questions. Some are nice, some are not nice. The nice things that we get sometimes turn non-nice. And the non-nice things turn nice. We have all this all a mixed up affair. But the whole point is that the essence of our reality, that which is real within us, that which is the essence of our being, when we eliminate the superimposed things, and the essence is bliss. And is it annihilation? Is it nothingness? No. Because easily we come back to those states of being awake or states of dreaming. So there is not only bliss there, there's also consciousness there. Also you remember, in the morning you can say, I slept well. But you don't remember anything, but you do, consciousness is there. So in that state there was existence, there was consciousness, there was bliss. So when the scriptures say Sat Chit Ananda is the existence, consciousness, bliss is the essence of our reality, and it's the essence of every perception. These are ways of understanding that. Of course, you wake up in the morning and all your problems are there, so you have not achieved anything at that point. Just, I fell asleep last night, so now I'm illumined. No, the thing is you fell asleep. When you got up, you were what you were before. But while you were asleep, you were given a hint, an idea, a conception of what the real nature is. Now, the real nature, according to the Upanishads, is that everything else that we perceive, everything that we perceive is perceived within ourselves. So when we see anything, we see it within our own consciousness. So what we're aiming for is an expansion of our consciousness so that these things which we now see as being different, these things which we now see as being, some of them are good, some of them are not so good, some of them are problematical, some of them are very advantageous. It's not the thing itself that is important. It's the fact that everything is filled with that consciousness. So what is it that is the same everywhere in these quotations that I read? He who sees the same everywhere. What is it that they see? What is that state of sameness? It's that what we're aiming for is to see not only within ourselves existence, consciousness, bliss, the essence, that essential reality within ourselves, but that same reality is in every perception, pratibodha viditam, in every perception from the Kena Upanishad. In every perception, that reality is to be seen. So in every perception is a perception of that reality. When we see someone else, if we see a person, that person is not the body in essence, and is not the mind in essence. That person is that spiritual reality in essence. Every perception that we see, a perception of a building, oh, this makes me so happy to see this wonderful building. Oh, this makes me very angry that this thing should happen. Okay, on the surface level, there are all these waves. But what is the essence of it? The essence of your own reality is this divine principle. This is God within. This is the reality of God within. They say God is within the hearts of all beings. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. Ishvara, the Lord, sarvabhutanam, of all beings, hriddeshe. Hrid is the heart. Desha is the region of the heart. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. The Lord resides in the hearts of all beings. And this is in every perception. Every perception, is that really a perception of God? You say, where is God? What is the reality of God? Where is God to be found? The answer is, where is God not to be found? There's no place where God does not exist. Because there's no place that is not filled with this infinite joy, infinite consciousness, infinite existence. We destroy that by all these ratiocinations, and so that's why in meditation we want to quieten the mind. When the mind becomes very quiet, the mind is what takes in all the differences. The whole idea is to quieten these differences. The whole idea is to see that these differences are floating on an ocean of reality. And if we can quieten that ocean, then we will see to the depths of it. And in the depths of that ocean, God alone exists. That means in the depths of every perception is that divine reality. In the depths of ourselves is that divine reality. That is the meaning of quieting the mind in meditation. When you make the surface of the mind quiet, the mind ceases to appear. The mind actually is what's preventing us from seeing all this. But the mind has to be used in this world as an essential chariot. It's the guide. It's the reality that we have to follow in order to navigate this world. It's absolutely essential. But we can sit and let that mind become absolutely quiet, or as quiet as we can make it. And as the mind becomes more and more quiet, that inner reality begins to appear more and more. It appears as a sweetness in meditation, as a joy, as peace, as all these transcendent qualities. And then these knows of Brahman assure us, as this goes on, as the lake of the mind becomes ever more quiet, that the reality of God will manifest itself. The reality of God is always there. What is it? How do you feel the reality of God? The reality of God is already within all phenomena, within all perceptions. In every perception is the reality of God, and the mind needs these differences in order to work, in order to operate. But when we quieten the mind and quieten these differences, then that which is already there, the essence of things which is already there, becomes visible. Like when you look at a lake, and you, as long as the wind is blowing, the water of the lake is rippling, and you see reflections of the sky and the hills and everything, but you don't see what's in the lake at all. Same with the mind. Everything is seen in the mind. We talk about everything, we see everything, we analyze everything, we work with everything, but it's only when the mind becomes sufficiently quiet that we're able to see that it's this rippling on the surface which prevented us from seeing the essence, which is the reality of everything that is there. So, for the reality of God, this is it, that it isn't that God has to reveal himself or herself. Oh Lord, please reveal yourself to me. God stands ever revealed. There's nothing but God. There's nothing but the infinite and the eternal. It's only when we have made ourselves a fit instrument, when we have tuned our inner radio to perfection, that we can see that reality, we can see that signal, and we can perceive what is really there. So the point is, what is the reality of God? There is only the reality of God. Everything else that we see is a ripple on the surface of the mind, which we need in order to get along in this world. Absolutely, we need these differences. If I come to a traffic light and I say, well, red is the same as green, it's all consciousness anyway, you go right through, this is not going to work. So for living in this world, but to take this all seriously, that is the mistake. The serious aspect of it is already there. The reality is already there. And by quieting the mind, we're able to perceive it. And then we prove to ourselves, that is the point, that is our homework, to prove to ourselves that these statements of the scriptures are really true. Thank you. lecture next Sunday because of a special program on Saturday. Lectures will resume the following week on October 16th, when Swami Vedananda will speak on Vedanta philosophy, second part. Childcare is provided during our Sunday lectures. On Wednesday evenings we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 p.m. There will be no Friday class this week. Class will resume on Friday, October 14th. Worship will be offered to the Divine Mother, Durga, next Saturday, October 8th at 10 o'clock in the morning. The program will include meditation, chanting, devotional singing, readings on the Divine Mother, flower offerings by devotees, and a prasad luncheon. Childcare will be provided. On Sundays, all are welcome to use the library from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of our services. As usual, after the lecture, there will be a question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall, and all are welcome. Om Dhyau Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apo Shanti Roshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is in the sky, on the earth and in the waters. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.